incredibly good to slot in early in draft.
Yeah.
And they take best use of it by pairing it up with other key engages. I think the Rakan is a really, really big one because Ari and Rakan play so well together to just dash forward over and over again or dash away. Oh, so much flexibility within that too. And that means that Secret, I want to see him on board. If you can pair up these two players together, you can have so much influence in these already what should be pretty neutral or winning side lanes.
Yeah, Ari and Rakan just feel like mobility creep incarnate.
Yeah.
It's just
Especially reworked Ari.
And something key about this Ari as well. Recap currently 6-0 on the champion. It is a lot more of that sort of facilitator playstyle whilst still being able to pump out a fair bit of damage. And the key thing for me is we've seen Rascal Jester playing non-standard. We've seen them playing a bit more around these solo lanes and deprioritizing that bot side. This is a lot more standard from them, a lot more bot lane focused. If they also smash this game, then coming into game 3, I am very, very worried for CGA because at that point it feels like you lose whatever way Rascal Jesters are going to go for it. We are on to the Rift now. We'll have to see if CGA can beat Rascal Jester when they are playing standard and type this series at 1-1, or if Rascal Jester can put themselves towards an early match point.
Absolutely, and you mentioned it there. Both teams are now playing standard, but last game, even with this, the new comp coming up from CGA, we saw some flubs both in choice picks as well as itemization. Specifically Nap, who we attributed as one of the stronger members on CGA, especially being this facilitator for early game on these counter picks. Now he's been given that again, but it's not the volley bear this time. It's not that AP volley bear. It's something a lot more traditional to the LJL, and it's in this Gnar. Now, not really super lane focused, and I think that's, if anything, playing towards CGA should be looking towards right now.
Yeah. Kind of just want that stability. Keep it nice and cool in the top side. Keep it nice and cool in the mid lane. Permagank bot lane. Make things happen. And I'm glad that we're actually highlighting these junglers because I believe we've got a little bit of a graphic that we're going to be able to show you fairly soon. Because Hachimetra and Kassin, it feels like they're very different players, right? Their goals for how they want to play the game Oak couldn't be more different from each other, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I think we already talked about it in game 1, but Hachimetra really plays defensively, and it gets perfectly highlighted here. You can see specifically in this key stat, wards third in wards cleared per minute, which is a really important stat when you're trying to introduce these kinds of, people want to play around vision to do aggressive plays. Hachimetra's on point to stop that, and combine that with a lot of what he does is just neutral stancing. He plays close to his lanes and sits there and waits for action to happen. You look at the opposite side and see Kassin instead, who's a very proactive jungler. This is why he hit third in our all-pro ranking, and this is shown in his wards per minute. He's dropping wards constantly. He likes speed, repeatedly putting pinks down to create these proactive vision points for his team to play through and for himself to play through as well.
And it's nice to see that ward stat a little bit high, because one of the things that characterized Kassin in summer is that he would go for these aggressive plays, but he wouldn't really have the information to back them up, and that made them a little bit less reliable than they otherwise would be. I think that he still has those games where it's less Cass win and a bit more Cassint, but consistency has been coming there, and we're going to need to see it in a big game because he's not one of these players that has a lot of experience in the playoffs. Hachimetra, obviously someone that has been around for ages, and in these higher pressure scenarios, I feel like maybe a cooler head can prevail.
Yeah, still can't believe he's 29. Very tenured player in the LJL. It is crazy, and yeah, hopefully this will come to his head as a little bit of a pause comes out. So there's probably going to be some technical issues, and it gives us a little bit of time to look at how the neutral state has been presented so far, and what we kind of expected, pretty bog standard overall. The big thing is that Soul and Secret managed to find an earlier reset, get 2 pinks on board, as well as that early tier for the Xayah, which means we're definitely seeing this penetration Xayah come in. People have been talking about the inklings for maybe this penetration Xayah combination where you got Lord Doms and the Collectors, but with that tier, probably not going to be happening.
Yeah, a bit more lethality, a bit more sort of early game focused. And it's a cool thing that you can do on Xayah because these components are a bit more effective on her. You can go for these sort of like shove and base, shove and base, shove and base, which means that there are less opportunities theoretically for Kassin to gank you because you're spending less time in lane. But of course, in order to get those resets, you do need to extend quite high. So if Kassin's able to get his jungle timings, his gank timings on lock, maybe there are angles for him to play around in the bot side.
Yeah, it's weird. That reminds me of another AD carry that recently got nerfed that used to do the exact same thing. Crazy. Yeah, this
Yeah.
sire is lane stability in a nutshell. And it really is why it's been slotted in earlier in drafts. Replacing those Jinx and those Aphelioses, which have very commonly been slotted in. Jinx now, with those nerfs in 12.5b, mana gets knocked all the way down, means that that level 4 shove and reset point doesn't really exist anymore. Xayah can still do that. We see it here. And also, as you mentioned, could do it at any point in the laning phase. A very aggressive champion coming in, the Q max combined with Airy, really looking towards creating CS deficit by repeatedly shove-ins, which is actually what they might be looking to replicate from game 1 as well. The Caitlyn performed a very similar role, and it was really off the back of Secret being relatively put in this lane. He stayed within this lane boundaries. Now this is a different role that he might be playing within this game, because we're seeing him on the Rakan now, but we don't. I think we had a look at the stats yesterday and we saw that actually Secret spends a lot of time in the spot side.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's a pretty good person that you're spending that time alongside, right? Solo is not a bad player by any means. And so often the discussions around Solo and Secret are about them as a duo, as a bot lane that works together and uses each other's strengths to push advantages for the team. And I like that you actually highlighted Secret, because I think looking towards that game 1, one of the things that we spoke about sort of off air was that the difference in the support play, it felt pretty substantial, right? Nema was missing a lot of these encores. They weren't really landing onto the key targets a lot of the time, but some of those hostile takeovers from Secret were absolutely pixel perfect.
Yeah, and I think this has been something that's actually has created this inconsistency within CGAs when Secret has been online for the entire second and third round robin, but Nema's a bit more of a flickery light source. I'm trying to see really if he gets online in this series at all, because that's really been where this team has played best. I was watching CGA's games backs and I saw their first game against Rascal Jester. And he did something incredible from Nema, which was he shoved in bot side, got a reset, walked through mid, shoved in mid wave, and then pulled his mid laner down bot side, and they got the first trake. And I was like, that's crazy. This is the kind of setup we want to see from this player.
Yeah, get active on the map, start making things happen, and build that momentum, because I feel like CGL are a bit of a momentum team. When they're winning, it looks really good, and all the decisions that they're making seem a lot more clear. But when they are on this back foot, a little bit less decisive, a little bit less able to execute in quite the way that you would like. We're talking about Secret getting out onto the map with these roams, grand entrance, forces the flash away from Kaito, who will get hit with the charm and a fair bit of damage back as well. But we're already seeing that, Oak.
Absolutely, and hopefully this doesn't mean that Soul will be burning anything in return. When we see these supports often get extended roam timers on map, it eventually leads into, okay, Soul's now got a wave shoved into him. Is any dive option possible? And the Xayah definitely helps to mitigate that.
Yeah.
But with Kassin having that Stormbringer, I think that's what the ultimate's called, it means that there's the option to disable that turret and play these extended dives out. And that could really hurt Soul if Secret does decide to play towards mid side, which, Recap was an excellent facilitator in the early game to move towards bot side. Maybe we see that in return from Secret moving towards this mid lane.
A little bit of an inversion, a little bit of a swap around those roles as we jump back to this top side. Bit of a quieter matchup, obviously. Nara and Ekton, how many times have we seen that, Oak? Not expecting too much action to come down, but
surprisingly with these players, it's been on the opposite end. We've seen actually Nafa's 5 games on the Renekton thus far, the split. Something I've actually been not a very big fan of, but in return, I know been very active. Big flash comes in,
getting flashed onto in the mid side.
Okay,
forced to burn that summoner himself. I love that by Kassin. Just take the summoner spell. That means that your setup on the next gank is so much easier. Nema looking for an engage, but it's getting turned around to the hybrid, who's forced to cleanse and flash away, but will still go down. First blood secured by Secret. Kassin gonna bail out Nema as Hachimetra is here as well. No more aggression gonna occur, but 2v2 kill in the bot lane.
And you want to see what it leads to. Not only are they going to be able to get this wave shove in and choke out. Remember, Cole start from hybrid, or a Cole means that he saw that tier. He's like, I'm going to get something in return. That gets limited. CS and XP in general gets limited. And I was hoping that Rascal Jester would look towards his Drake as well. We get to see it play out here. And the big thing is, look at this Rakan W just picking off. Combine that with the burst, it means that, I mean, Hybrid, even with the cleanse to stop the ignite healing, stop the ignite from doing damage. Secret just knows he has damage. There's no response and gets their first blood there. Very well done.
And that doesn't bode well for me, because that was a fight that CJ initiated. That was never going forward thinking, oh, we've got a pick here, but really underestimated the power that the Zyrakan can have in the early game. And Hybrid going down is not how this game wanted to start for CGA. Recap's going to ult forward. They've got a potential catch on
it's a big charm.
and it is just too easy. Secret with a double kill.
And it's Rascal Jesters have been listening to us, because Secret does exactly what we were hoping Nema would be doing. And in turn, this 3-man comes in and picks off Kassin in what we thought would be a fairly innocuous place. But Kassin burned that flash earlier to get the flash out of Recap. Well, unfortunately, he's not level 6 yet. Recap is. They use that Spirit Rush to secure that kill with a very well-timed charm and leads straight into this Drake as well. Rascal Jesters, once again, early game is going towards them.
And we were talking about this, like, if Rascal Jester can continue to show these strong early games, that's really sort of their one big glaring weakness, their one weak point that we felt like that teams could attack them in these playoff bracket. If their early games have been fixed, if they've got a lot more of this proactivity, which based on what I'm currently seeing is definitely the case, then bodes well for them as we get into those later stages. XP difference not too substantial in the solo lanes, and bot lane is massively favouring Solvo.
Yeah, I feel really bad for both Nema and Hybrid here, as they've been really choked out this lane.
Oh no.
But when they're with Kassin also not being on the map, it means that, okay, so we're seeing some proactive play from CGA as they look towards this Herald in that return trade. And now Rascal just have not rotated their bot lane up yet, but they are doing so now. So there's a very strict timer for CJ to be looking towards this before the numbers of Rascal Jester can converge.
And the thing is, CJ took both Heralds in the previous game. They weren't able to pick up the second one, but it's where the priority has been. Never looking for an engage onto Hatchemetro, who isn't able to flag and drag away. And maybe this is actually a good fight for CGA. Secret going in, getting a double knock up there. His Nappy's going to be taken out at the start of the fight. Eno culls him down. Kassin doesn't have a flash to get out of this one. The feathers are going to be pulled back, but not deal too much damage. In goes Hatchemetro with the Cataclysm. It's a slow-paced fight, but it's one that favours Rascal Jester in the end. The Ignite won't even take him out. Another clean play.
Absolutely. And Rascal Jester's, remember, this comp is very forward-walking. Even with Hatchemetro having to play in deficit there, he has to flash out of the fight. We think, oh, okay, this could be a chance for CJ to win. But they get that 5-man unit, and we already talked about how strong they are past that 15-minute mark when they get their team together. Well, they bring it in early instead, and they still get to flex those muscles, and we get to see it specifically here. So Hatchemetro forced to flash out, and this is really where we think, okay, maybe CJ can start this fight on a potentially positive stance. But unfortunately, not anywhere near Mega, and this means he's one of the first to be picked up in this fight. The rest of CJ left scrambling, and then combine that with this fantastic Cataclysm right at the end. Immediately pick off Kaito, who remembers the highest XP right now at this point in the game. He is probably the strongest overall member for this team. Picked off in second. It means the rest of CJ are playing to run away, and they cannot do so against this comp.
And while CJ did get that Herald, the gold value of those kills on the backside is probably going to outstrip anything that they can get with it. So over-prioritizing that objective and ending up in a bad fight. Still 10 minutes. It's only just 10 minutes into the game, but we've got this massive gold lead accrued by Rascal Jesters. And the thing is, they are continuing to snowball. They are continuing to look to these fights. What do you do now if you are CJ? Because you lost that first game pretty handedly. It's not looking great for you in this game too. How do you attack this matchup?
I mean, it's not like you lack scaling options. We look at CJ, and whilst we're going, okay, well, Rascal Jester definitely has some scaling opportunities. You have a traditional AD carry, and that always benefits you past these 4 items. It's just getting to that stage combined with this rise, and the big thing there is finding the right timings to trade these objectives. We saw there CJ too late on the Herald, and in turn that leads to those kills being given over in the deficit they've been put themselves in. It may continue here. Kassin is caught out.
Still has the flash, still has no ultimate, and no hope of getting out. That was just way too much damage, way too quickly. Can't react to that. And again, another pick for Rascal Jester.
And that's because Hatchemetro found an early reset and is the first person on board to have a mythic. Drinker already picked up 11 minutes into the game. So he's very happy with how the game state's been so far and is trying to really abuse that right now. Remember, Rascal Jester, they picked up one player and now they've opted in towards this lane swap. Now, I wouldn't be surprised to see, hopefully at least, Soul get this wave shove in, immediately reset towards this Drake because they know that they have control of the game at the moment. I want to see them continue that as just crossing very aggressively. Reminder, Kaito is on a reset at the moment, so Hachimecha can play aggro if he needs to.
Yeah, and sort of the thing that he does, we talked about being a defensive player, there is the more aggressive side of that as well, walking into the enemy jungle, acting as sort of like a living ward, making sure that you scout out where the enemy jungler is, so that your lanes aren't going to be falling too far behind. Reset comes through for Soul and Secret. I imagine they're going to be making a beeline towards that Drake.
Yeah, but this J4 Ari combo has actually been incredibly proactive yet again, specifically Hachimecha through this Jarvan. It's different. You've seen him on a lot of Poppy, a lot of Volibear. These champions that, whilst definitely having early game play, they revolve around more of these team fighting aspects, these skirmishing aspects, and Hachimecha instead has just been on the ball. We're just EQing in, repeatedly finding these engages. The Soul's
I don't know,
split
Nema's
between
here.
3 people.
Soul could get caught out. He's going to be forced to cleanse. As Secret finds the engage off onto Hybrid. Solar Flare uses. Recap is going to be ulting into the fight as well. There is nowhere for Hybrid to go as he's taken out right at the beginning of the fight. Stormbringer back from Kassin to buy a second at a time, but he's still locked in the Cataclysm. Rascal Jesters are looking so damn impressive.
They're putting on a show here at this point, repeatedly playing through their offensive capabilities to absolute perfection. They find 3 more kills. They're going to get 2 more places into Soul. They didn't even need that bot lane swap. With those 2 kills being picked up, they can also look towards this dragon anyway. And in fact, they might just keep looking to pump on plates, as many places as possible to this comp to really hit mid game strong.
And again, whilst I think that Soul has been a bit more involved in this game, it's not him that's being the primary carry. It's a bit more focused on Recap at the moment. It's a bit more focused on this Jarvan, actually, who has become incredibly strong. CGA, they thought they got the drop on Soul here. They thought that they'd be able to find the fight, but the way that Rascal Jester responds is just too clean.
Yeah, Secret specifically. On this, every time he brings out something new, we go, okay, well, is this something he can continue to bring on the board at the highest level? And he says, yes, absolutely, I can do this. And combine that with just picking picks that work so well with the lane in isolation and then carrying that forward into mid-game. So important. I think we saw SoftBank Hawk struggle with this a little bit, with specifically Reina, who's also picked up this Rakan. And whilst doing very well in the early game, once mid-game comes, the engages come lacking. Secret has, this game so far, touch wood, done a fantastic job of continuing to play aggressively and finding these picks.
I don't think you need to touch wood on the he's played good statement. Because
I don't want to cast this curse anybody.
I think there are very few people that would dispute that Secret has had a phenomenal game, phenomenal series so far, as have the whole of Rascal Jester. CGA, though, gonna try and respond, gonna try and pick up this Drake to get a little bit of power, deny that as a potential win condition for Rascal Jester, that Soul point, which would have been coming online very, very quickly, by the way, but they are more than happy to trade it for this Rift Herald.
Yeah, and this comes in tandem with bounties being unlocked on the map. 5k gold deficit of 15 minutes means bounties are now online for these first turrets, and top lane turret specifically is very low. So CGA could maybe claw back a little bit of that gold that's been stolen away from them and look towards this top lane tier 1. Now, I just don't know if they're going to ever have the numbers to throw towards it, because now Soul and Recap really flexing their strength and trying to use their individual pick tools in tandem with Hachimecha and Secret, just starting aggressively to go, okay, if the charm hits, can we take this fight?
Well, not just stancing aggressively, just throwing out those ground entrances willy-nilly, and CJ not really in a position. Are you laughing at willy-nilly? Come on.
No, I'm laughing at the fact that CJ can't really do anything.
No, yeah, they can't. They can't.
Exactly your point.
If you're not laughing, you are crying right now. If you're a CGA fan, and I'm doing a lot of laughing because Rascal Jester have just come out so much quicker than we expected them to in the early game. They've constantly looked for these fights, and even when it's CGA starting them, it's getting turned around. CGA have only got 2 kills so far in this entire series, I believe.
Oh,
and that's not a good look for a team that we said needed to get stuff done in the early game.
Absolutely, and it's been off a bit of desyncing from the junglers and the laners. I think when we saw the Aphelios and the Leona coming together, we thought, okay, Fantastic. This is an early get lane that you can play towards on this volley bearers.
Oh no.
We see the
Oh,
desync
dear.
continue as
Oh.
Kassin gets picked off, has to use the ulti and still gets picked off by that Cataclysm, and it's really starting to show here. You mentioned earlier that Kassin has occasionally started to make more proactive plays without vision really being on point here. Now look at the vision scattered for CGA at the moment. A couple of trinkets in top side. Pinks not online for anybody at the moment, even though we see them in inventory. In return, Rascal Jester very aggressively stance vision up towards the edge of the top side jungle. This means that they're going to see, combined with these repeated wave shoves, they get to see where every member of CJ are. They rotate to the jungle, they know, which means they know Kassin's there in isolation because they see the rest of the laners catching those waves in top and mid side, and they can repeatedly make these picks. And it's showing this desync from Kassin and Hybrid to Kassin and Nema, who weren't able to find early game success, and now mid game, even with the Soda Flare and all the other pick tools they have, it can't do anything proactively.
And if you'd asked me before this game, who are my sort of two key members on CJ, it's Kassin and Hybrid, and neither of them has really been able to show up in the way that we wanted to see them this series. I know currently getting chased down, 3 members of CJ going to be here for this one, but Secret is around as well. Can the Renekton buy enough time? Double dice away! And they don't even get the kill.
And this is something we saw Ino doing in game 1 as well on the Tryndamere. I'm having a little bit of deja vu because it's the same thing as well. He pulls so much pressure when he's actually playing just for net neutrality. He is there to be a HP bar, a resource for this team in tandem with the pressure he's able to pump out to force CGA to go, okay, we have to do something against this guy, because we can't do anything against the rest of Rascal Jester, and he's performing that role to exception. And actually, this is a role that I think Nap did really well in the regular season.
Yeah, but you can't really absorb that pressure, play that weak side, if the rest of your team is absorbing the pressure, and not so much absorbing the pressure as the pressure is going onto them, and it's like it's like a hydraulic press. Honestly, that's what it feels like watching this game right now, because CGA, it doesn't feel like they can push back at any point. And Rascal Jester can just make plays with impunity. They can play the game exactly that they want. Maybe it's snowballing a little bit slower because they aren't going to have those big objectives online quite as early, because CJ were able to take away that Drake. But it's still another impressive performance from Rascal Jester. It's still CJ not really contesting them. They haven't even got a kill. And I think you're already thinking about game 3 if you're CJ, and I don't think those are positive thoughts.
Absolutely not. I think there are some ways for CJ to maybe find a return in this game. Now, 7k gold deficit in 19 minutes it's rather substantial middle court, but there are still ways to find a comeback. And I think if you look at Rascal Jester's comp as a whole, especially the bot side, very, very squishy. And just like game 1, where we mentioned that CJ still have these pick tools. We saw it earlier against Ino, where that Soda Flare was thrown out to force Ino's flash. Well, you can do the same against Secret. You can do the same against Soul. You can force these summoners, repeatedly use these ultimates in more aggressive points of the game when you really know for sure you have the vision to support that, and that could potentially lay out for their first kill of the game.
But then the question becomes, if you're burning those cooldowns in a sort of proactive manner to try and get yourself micro advantages that you're then going to recapitalize on, I feel like Rascal Jester has just kind of been better than that. We saw that one of the first kills they got onto Kassin was because he blew a flash, trading that with recap slash in the mid side, and then he was getting punished for that. So I agree with you, that's what CJ need to do, but I'm also worried that Rascal Jester can also engage into that style of gameplay and honestly just do it better. Drake going to be the focus now for Rascal Jesters. They're not going to be getting towards that soul too quickly, but additional power, a little bit of attack speed, a little bit of ability haste, advantages that you're going to use to press further forward.
Yeah, everybody loves this soul, right? I mean, not just the soul, the Drake in general. I think Hextech Drake is probably the most popular
cool
Drake
one.
in terms of its actual. It just gives stats that everybody likes. It's an everybody's dragon, you know?
The people's Drake.
Yeah, the people's Drake, exactly. And I think this might have been a little strat from Rascal Jester. They gave over that Cloud Drake and still managed to hit second Drake at 20 minutes, which means they still had that Wincorn coming in on that 30-minute timer, and it's going to be right in time for a potential first Baron for this.
How does Kassin... How does that not spot that ward?
Oh, that's so the pink is getting clipped by the wall there, so it doesn't show, and yeah.
That's
You'll be
not
careful
what
when
you
you're
want.
placing
When you're
your pings.
behind already,
So,
you don't
do you
want
know-
that.
Oh, so maybe a pick comes onto Nema. Nothing gonna result. And do you know how you fix that? You put the ward right on the top of that brush, and then it sees both angles.
Ah.
Yeah, a little bit of vision advice for you. Maybe
Thank
Sin
you.
can
I
listen to that one.
appreciate that. It feels like it should just work. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a game designer, but like,
You think it should
feels
just
like
work?
it should just work.
You think vision should see through walls? A little bit of X-ray.
I mean, yeah, not
Okay.
too bad about that one.
Brilliant. Oh, Kaito is too aggressive.
Yeah, he's
and
dead
it's
here.
going to come out. Oh, shouldn't have said anything. If you
Well,
didn't
he's
say
not
anything,
dead.
he wouldn't
He's
have
burnt
died
the
there.
flash, so he's gonna be dead in like 2 minutes.
If there's anything to tell for, because Rascal Jester have,
Oh, hybrid.
you mentioned it earlier,
Oh,
trading there, and we're seeing hybrid getting a little bit more proactive.
Don't talk about it. Don't talk about the ult.
Did he use the Moonlight Vigil?
There was a solar flare. We don't talk about it. Anyway, Rascal Jester doing the Baron. CJ not really in a position to contest with Kassim down on the bot side, and it feels like we're going to be getting into game 3 sooner rather than later, Oak.
Yeah, Rascal Jester have been really on point with using this Baron very, very aggressively with the strength of their laners to find initial picks and then use one pick to rotate into an inhib and then rotate that inhib into more. They play the Barons extremely cleanly, and it's something I'm a big fan of personally. So I'm hoping, especially with the laners that they set up with this Sire and the Ahri, that can both hit one CC tool that can catalyze into more pickup points. As Kassin he's starting aggressively, but I think the rest of the Rascal Jesters are here and they want this fight. Hatchamech is on a big flank.
They are going for it. This is going to end up being a 4v4 potentially, or maybe CGA members are going to fall before support can even get there. Already one dead.
Oh
Make
my
that two as
God.
Recap is going to take out Hybrid. Nap is going to be taken down on the other side of the fight as Nema is 1v1ing Hatchamecha, but he's not going to win that one. Recap comes over, but the jungler still secures the kill. That's 3 picked, and that means that Rascal Jester are going to have a lot of time to push with this Baron.
And a fantastic punish of such a minor mistake. It was really showing the gold lead and how brute force Rascal Jesters can be. Kassin oversteps. He's trying to use that ping to get an initial pick, but Rascal Jesters know they have the numbers on board and that Soul does not die quick enough with the ultimate available to make any pick from CJ worth it. And so they go, okay, cool, we can play the long game. They use that Hextech Gate to flank through and find that pick. Fantastic. In here picks off, and this is the same time Iono's just been chilling in top side, doing the same thing that he's been doing all series so far. And once again, CJ are falling for it. They throw 3 members down here, and it means that Rascal just have the free space to get this mid-wave shove in too and look towards second in here with this Baron. They're doing it again, Middlecott.
This is just absolutely brilliant. You so rarely see LJL teams play around waves like this where they can get that bot shoved in, get that mid shoved in, and then still have some presence in the top side. Rascal Jester are looking like a very, very scary team at the moment, and CGA looking terrified, honestly. That solar flare cleansed away from by Soul, so that's 1 tool down. That's 1 defensive option that Rascal Jester aren't going to have in their pocket, but you're getting triple in here at 24 minutes. Snap looking for an engage, but isn't going to be able to find it as Soul goes into the feathers and pulls them back. Nema now drop low on the front line. He's going to be taken out as Hybrid. Gale forcing forward, but not able to find it. That means that Secret finds the engage, that Hatchamecha finds the engage, the Recap finds the kill, and the Rascal Jesters are going to find the second game of this series.
And that was a split fight for Rascal Jesters as well. 2 members had used that Hextech Gate to get out. A 3v5 by and large from Rascal Jesters, but it doesn't matter. The kill lead's there. The Flash Charm is there as well. Recap. Fantastic performance this series thus far in tandem with everybody else on the team who has done such a good job of showing how strong this team really is in the latter half of this tournament. 2 absolute just shows of I'm lost for words in terms of how impressive Rascal Jester have looked so far, and also how different they looked from regular season, being so proactive on the boards, repeated